Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Got a lively debate for you today, and to introduce myself first, my name is Ruth Bickerton. I'm the Vice President of Partnerships at Aptitude Software, working on the subscription side of the business with MPP Global. So today we're going to be talking about the media sector and the changes that they're going through at the moment. It's pretty drastic, the changes, not only with the data, but around digitization too. So the landscape's changing quite rapidly. So how are media businesses dealing with this? Some media companies are at the start of that journey. Others are partway through their digital transformation and are still trying to look at ways to kind of improve the business model so that they can get it right. They can future-proof their business and make sure that they're looking after the next generation of audiences with that right business model. So in this webinar, we're going to focus on those key challenges that media owners are facing at the moment and look at some tips and some advice for working smarter with your subscriptions and with your advertising and kind of challenge that age-old thought process that they cannibalize each other. They can't work together. We believe that they can. So what are the tips and suggestions we've got that we can do that? So joining me today on the webinar, we've got Ben Chivers from Silver Bullet. So I'll let Ben introduce himself first.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben Chivers. I'm COO of the marketing services side of Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet is a professional services company specialising in consumer data. So effectively, we make sure the right message is delivered to the right consumer at the right time. We're split across 3 core pillars: empower, build, and achieve. So helping clients set up a data strategy, implementing that data strategy, and helping with the ongoing managed services. We've specialized working with brands and working with content owners as well. So we work with both sides of the advertising value chain, and we also know the technology that sits well in between. So we understand what brands want and how they want to contact their consumers, and we understand what content owners are doing and how they want to monetize their content, and bringing that together with the tech in the middle. So really, really exciting time working with both sides of that business, and really excited to explore some of the topics today.
Great, thanks Ben, and over to Ben number 2. Ben Catterall's joining us.
Yeah, hi guys, thanks Ruth. Ben Catterall from the Aptitude Software side, principal pre-sales consultant focused on the subscription and billing modules. I've worked for the business for 11 years, and in that time worked very closely with media companies to launch subscription models, to grow subscription models that have been in existence for a while and take them to the next level, and also to look at the other end of the life cycle, the churn side of things, when customer subscriptions sadly come to an end. So yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to a good chat with Ben about all things data, subscriptions, cash, money, revenue, churn.
Great, thanks guys. So lots of experience there to offer some tips and advice for everyone listening. So to kick off, the first question really is what sort of challenges do you see the content owners are facing at the moment? And I think I'll hand that first one over to Ben from Silver Bullet.
Yeah, thanks Ruth. So I would say a couple of big things that are occurring at the moment. First of all, competition for eyeballs. So today we live in a world where there's more ways than ever to consume content. Multiple companies are becoming content owners. So it's not just the traditional broadcasters or publishers that are content owners. Football clubs are content owners. We've seen retailers now becoming content owners and the rise of retail media. In fact, like anyone can become a content owner. You and I could become content owners when we upload content, and we could have the opportunity to monetize that content if it's good enough. So I think that's a massive challenge and an opportunity at the same time that content owners are facing. So making sure their content is relevant for the right consumers. So if I find a niche in something that I'm doing and something I'm creating content for, making sure I find the right consumers to take that on. I'd also say, coupled with that, there's more free content than ever. So it's harder than ever to find content that you're able to monetize. And I think if people want to find, like, if they're happy with the free side of content, it's hard to justify the payments. So they've got to make sure the content is relevant and worth the money that they're going to be forking out. I think this is in fact another opportunity where we're seeing the rise of fake content as well. And we've worked with some companies like Thomson Reuters implementing a trust rating, and this really shows the value of their content. So yes, this is given like 5 stars, it's definitely not fake, and then that's a valuable set of content that you can monetize, and people will pay for that service. Outside of the sort of more content and more free content, I think the outside influences that can't be overlooked. Inflation is a huge issue for any company in the market at the moment. So everyone is feeling the pinch, and I think this is where it comes back to subscriptions. So we've seen like Lloyds Bank just released a study to show that 40% of people have dropped some sort of subscription in the last 3 months. And that's more than just like video subscriptions or publisher subscriptions. This could be gym subscriptions. Deloitte have just released a study showing that over the course of 2022, they estimate 150 million paid subscriptions on video streaming services will be cancelled, and this equates to around a 30% churn rate in the market. So this is a huge like a factor and challenge that content owners have to sort of bring to effect, and really help stop really that churn effect, and understanding where they're going to find that gap, where they're going to find the new people to come in to make up for that 30% churn.
Interesting challenges, there's obviously so much happening at the moment. You mentioned inflation as well, which is something that people don't tend to think about. But Ben, what are your thoughts on the challenges?
Well, on the inflation angle and the cost of living in post-COVID world, there was a huge boom in subscriptions during the pandemic. People were at home. They didn't spend money on going out, restaurants, cafes, cinemas, etc. So they could have more money to spend on streaming services, music services, and subscriptions in general. Now the pandemic's hopefully coming to an end. People's lives have opened up again. They need to figure out where they can allocate their money. And with the cost of living rising through inflation, through energy bills, through all sorts of different factors, Ben's absolutely right. People are looking at what the ways they can cut costs and save some money. And I read an article earlier that in the first quarter of this year, 2022, 1.5 million subscriptions were cancelled, and over 500,000, so a third of those, when the customers were asked why, it was to do with money, to do with income, to do with it being too expensive. And I think that's a trend we can continue to see. And the buzzword that we'll hear more and more about is subscription fatigue. There are so many subscription services. You can't have a subscription to everything. So the market will have to change. And it kind of brings me to a second point, and to comment on Ben's point that all different industries are now offering subscriptions. Everyone can be a creator these days. And across those different industries, different business models are popping up. So what works for a TV streaming service versus what works for a food subscription, a gym subscription, a newspaper subscription, and even within newspaper, a print subscription versus digital subscription. There's so much variety out there, and I think there's an opportunity for all of these companies. These are challenges, of course, but there's an opportunity to learn from other industries and see if there are takeaways from non-traditional subscription industries that could be applied back into the markets where we're all familiar with seeing recurring business models.
I think that kind of links in quite nicely to the next question. So we've talked about the challenges, but what are your suggestions on what these content owners can do? What can they do better, work smarter, particularly around subscriptions, to face up to these challenges? I'll get Ben from MPP Global.
Yeah, I think the first consideration is that the consumers are humans, and everybody knows humans are different. Everybody has different behaviors. They have different content they will like to consume. They're more willing to buy content at different times of the week, the month, the year, depending on various factors, family, jobs, work-life balance, how much time do they have available to consume that content. So just always remembering that the people generating the revenue, the customers spending the money, are always going to be different. So that's the first thing to consider. And then, as I say, looking at the other markets and looking at the business models that are coming through, this idea that one size fits all is old hat. I don't think many companies do believe that these days, and you do see variation, certainly geography to geography and certainly industry to industry. But what I think we're going to see is more variety within individual sectors. So within the TV sector, as an example, there's rumours of Netflix adding an advertising tier to their package, not just the $15 a month subscription model, but also an ad model. Maybe there's something in the middle as well, where for a smaller fee, you can have a reduced number of ads. And it's just about balancing and offsetting one with another. It's not about all or nothing subscriptions or ads. It's finding a middle ground that works nicely, in my eyes, and learning from other industries.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's that one size fits all business model is completely gone now. And I think that content owners have got to work out what is the end state they want to get their consumers to. And it doesn't have to be a full subscription model that you're moving people to. It could be ad funded to a certain extent. It could be one-off payments. And that end state could be different from consumer to consumer. So for myself as a sports fan, I'd probably pay for one-off games, but subscribing for watching sports content all year round, I'm not going to get to that point, because I just want to pick and choose which games I want to watch. And it's understanding me as a person. And I think that's where content owners, brands, any sort of business is starting to get to that one-to-one relationship and understanding they can market in this way. They can sort of treat people and personalize content, personalize the models, and personalize those purchase options to their consumers in different ways. Now we've got tech has actually caught up with this, and we've seen there's tech out there, CDPs, data clean rooms, that are allowing brands and content owners to work in this way and change the way they're interacting with consumers.
Yeah. That kind of ability to test and to experiment is probably easier than ever before. Would you agree with that, Ben, from your work?
Absolutely. I think self-serve and understanding, testing models, learning from it, and then adapting. I think that's a common theme we're seeing both on the brand side and the content owner side. So understanding what's working and what isn't, and then adapting accordingly.
So I think from what you've just said, I kind of already know the answer to this question, but I'm just going to throw it out there anyway, and see what you guys have to say. So it's that age-old question about advertising working with subscriptions, and do they cannibalize each other? So what are your thoughts on that, Ben, from MPP Global?
See if we can get some direct revenue from them with a payment, with a subscription. And this idea of advertising has become more programmatic and cleverer over the years. I think the same logic and theory can very easily apply to a subscription, showing the customer the right subscription package or single transaction for a one-day pass, a weekend pass, or something like that, at the right time in the buying journey, in the right format, with the right price, the right payment type. We've done it with ads and images for years and years. I think it's only a matter of time before the same experiments can be applied to subscriptions and product sales.
100%. Those ads are like showing the different subscription models. They're just house ads, so they just treat them the exact same way. So you've got your internal company is going to be that's going to be the advertiser, and they'll just show that right ad at the right time. And working out like where best to place that is cross-selling, upselling. That's the kind of stuff that the tech is now built for. And you again, testing, learning, adapting, you can find out when is the best time to show that ad to the consumer.
Yeah,
I think going back as well, like this isn't a new question that needs to be answered, I don't think, because you look at the Sky model, that's a subscription service, but you're paying a premium for that content. So this is before the digital revolution. You're paying for your satellite dishes, your subscriptions. You've constantly paid for that because you're getting access to movies, you're getting access to sport. There's always ads in between those areas as well. It's showing the right ads at the right time and working out how many ads could I put onto this content before the consumers start getting to the churn point. So that's kind of that balance of working out like what is the best ad load that we need to put in there. How strong is my content to be able to support both a subscription model and ads on there as well. And I think that's the question that content owners have to decide, because there is going to be some content that's out there that's I would never pay for, but there's other stuff out there that's like premium, like films, like high-end TV shows and sport. There's always going to be a point where you can pay for that content and put ads on there as well.
Yeah, and there's a model in the TV world that's kind of come to the fore maybe in the last 18 months or so, especially this year, called FAST, which is, check my notes, free ad-supported television. And it's effectively traditional linear TV, 15-minute segments of programs, episodes, with a 3-minute ad break. So it's an experience that we're very used to consuming from being kids watching only kind of 4 or 5 channels. Now just via an online delivery mechanism. So it's the combination of the ads in the places where you expect the ads to be. The consumer's quite happy with that. And again, for that content potentially that's slightly older, where it's had its premium moment, where it's been through the cinema, through the box office, and it's becoming more archive content, well, yeah, have it on a linear fast channel where it just plays 24/7. And if a customer wants to watch it, well, they just click a button and it streams in the background. It doesn't have to be completely gated and locked behind a paywall. There are other models, and the data you can generate may also provide a similar value to a direct transaction anyway.
I think a lot of content owners will still be quite nervous about this, you know, the fact that it could cannibalize their ad revenue, which they're traditionally used to having. So do you think there are any ways that they can use measurement tools or AI that's going to make them more confident that it doesn't cannibalize that revenue and that they can work together?
I think the question that needs to be asked there is, do I know how to measure if it's cannibalizing or not? I think a lot of content owners just aren't set up to be able to make that measurement, so to understand how much revenue I've got coming in for subscriptions, how much revenue I've got coming in from ads, and those changes over time. And I think it's easier for digital first companies to be able to do that measurement. So we've mentioned Netflix potentially setting up an ad funded platform. I think they'll easily be able to measure, once I implement the ad funded model, how many people are dropping off from my subscriptions and moving over into that side of the business. I think for companies, the traditional broadcasters and traditional publishers is a little bit harder to set up because they're coming from the ad world and moving into subscriptions. Ads still tied up in linear advertising, in traditional publisher advertising as well, and understanding how those digital and linear and traditional advertising methods are then being cannibalized by some sort of subscription. I think it's much harder and it's not a simple answer. I think that's where companies need to understand what are the key performance indicators. What do I want to measure? If it's just revenue bottom line, if it's ad revenue, subscription revenue, understanding what consumers are doing and how they want to consume the content.
Yeah, and I think it has been a challenge, and that fear of cannibalization is absolutely true, and people do have that worry. And I wonder if that's slightly outdated now with the advent of data availability and accessibility. It was 2, 3, 4 years ago really expensive to store big data sets, then to process it at scale was difficult, costly, and the amount of people with those skills wasn't as abundant as it is today. And also the technologies, the ability to get the data out of the technology. I know, Ben, when we prepared for this webinar, we were talking about some war stories where clients just don't know the data is available, and the rafts and rafts of data that are in our subscription platform, alongside the video players, alongside the CMSs, the analytics tools. There's so much data there that maybe it becomes a daunting exercise, and they're fearful of just trying to figure out and see the wood for the trees when there's so much data you potentially can get your hands on. Where do you start? And I think maybe that's one of the trickiest steps on the journey, is just starting out and, like Ben says, figuring out those initial KPIs to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
I think once a company is able to connect those dots from subscriptions, advertising, content, even the product side of the platform, if you're able to connect that all around the consumer, you're in a really, really strong position. I don't think many companies out there are doing that right now. I think they've got a subscription business, they've got an advertising business, they've got a product, and they've got content they want to acquire. Once you've connected that up and worked out how people are consuming that content, you're able to develop certain things in certain areas, understanding what content you need to buy or produce in order to drive up subscriptions, what content is going to create the most advertising revenue from me, and then on top of that, how do I market that to the new subscribers? How do I stop churn? How do I spot those people and then make sure they're aware of that new content that's coming to the platform?
Yeah, and that's once the customer's at the middle, because remember, that's the most important part in all this. We have all the data in the world, all the content in the world, but if you've got no customers who want to buy that content or consume that content, then it doesn't really matter. So putting the customer at the heart of it all, and there's a side benefit, which should be the primary benefit of understanding what's going on, which is you can improve the user experience. And that should be, in my mind, the number one output of the data exercises. But how can we make the customer's life easier, better, stickier, more loyal, reduce the churn? Because off the back of that, that's where the new customers will come from and where the churn reductions will take effect.
Yeah, so data strategy, your customer strategy, focus, all great points. And it's been a really great conversation, but are there any key takeaways that you want to share for content owners from today's session that you think are the best ones to leave on?
Just diving into a couple of case studies where I've seen like really strong use of data and the use of tech out there. DAZN is quite a good example here because they're sports content owner. They were seeing that subscriptions were dropping off at the end of the football season, and so when they're able to analyze that and understand these subscriptions are coming to an end, we're seeing a massive reduction in revenue here. How do we keep consumers involved, and how do we keep them from churning and moving away from our platform? They were then able to create content based around old content. So they had DAZN ambassadors producing like my favorite goals of the last 10 years or so forth. That content kept a few subscribers around, and it's like adapting and understanding what can I do to drive those, understand the KPIs, understanding what do I need to do to drive and make change those indicators, and then adapting accordingly. I'm sure there's other things that could go in there as well, such as different payment methods, and looking at what could I do. I think the technology now allows you to understand this and allows you to give those different levers that you can pull.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that kind of on the payment side, holidays, pauses, deferring payments during the off season, you'd probably achieve the same end goal of reducing churn, customers who click cancel at the end of the season with the expectation that they'll subscribe again at the start of next. If you can just remove that risk that they'll forget with content, as you've explained, Ben, but also with clever payment tools, yeah, why not? And I think my takeaway would be around experimenting and iterating, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. This isn't going anywhere. We're not suddenly going to go back to the world where paid content and subscription and paid for models disappear, but they're gonna evolve over time. And if you've got the ability to be agile and to make tweaks here and there and create supplementary revenue streams alongside your core revenue streams, the New York Times main subscription, absolutely great. The numbers are phenomenal, but look how many were added when they added a puzzles and crosswords app alongside it. It's a separate business. It's a separate revenue stream that complements and supplements the main revenue drivers. We see it throughout publishing. We're going to see it more and more through sports and TV, merchandise sales, experiences, online, offline experiences in stadiums. I think that there's so much opportunity ahead of us. It's going to be really interesting. And yeah, the takeaway is to try things and to fail fast.
So thank you so much for joining us today. That's great. It is certainly an interesting time in the media sector, particularly content owners, and it's just great to hear that there are some ideas about how you can face these challenges head on to get the business model right for that future success. So thanks again for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.
Very welcome. Cheers.